Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the US Futures Weekly Chart Analysis for the week ending 18th of October 2024. First chart is the US Dollar Index Futures, which continued to push higher again this week. We were looking at this level here previously, and the market's exceeded that level and pushed up to this level here. We've got a level going through like that. It's more a zone than an individual level. There's definitely going to be increased resistance up here, and the market's floated into this area, which is a little bit of a vacuum. It was easier to move through here. The close off the week's high suggests there was a little bit of weakness in the market, and that's probably reflected by the lower volume this week, below average. So the market's just sitting in here in this vacuum between the two levels. E-mini S&P. This is S&P 500 Index Futures. And the market's moved higher more recently. There was a little period of consolidation in here, and then the market's edged higher again this week on relatively low volume for the second time. So this market's floating higher on a lack of selling pressure. There's not a great deal of intent in the market, and I expect the market would come down relatively easily on the back of any weakness that emerged. But at the moment, selling pressure is low, and that allows this market to float higher. US Treasury 10-year note futures have been sitting up near the high of the range up here. Some weakness has come in as there was strength in the US dollar. The market's pulled back. This week it's traded inside the previous bar's range all week as a consolidation or absorption bar. And as you would expect on an inside bar like that, volume was relatively low. So selling pressure was low. Given any weakness in the US dollar, I expect this market will attempt to move higher. Otherwise, a further sideways bar is the most likely outcome. Copper price futures have been in consolidation mode after this push higher more recently, and the consolidation's taking place. It's not a particularly strong consolidation, but there's no great weakness involved either. You can see spread narrowed this week, but volume was relatively low also and below average. So selling pressure in this market wasn't particularly strong either. You've got resistance coming through here, and the market's consolidating just below that line. I expect when there's a little bit of weakness in the US dollar, price will push up to that level. I don't expect it will challenge it in the near term. You'll more likely get this sort of movement for a little bit just below that level. Any great amount of weakness that emerged, however, would see price back down here. And I expect there'll be increased support found just above or below this level. Gold price futures have continued to be relatively strong more recently. This is where we saw the most recent period of consolidation. And after a couple of little hiccups, price did break out here. A 3-week consolidation in response before another push higher. We've noted over the last couple of weeks the market pushed higher and was too strong to come back and consolidate. And after last week's bar, where we saw a proper test for supply below the previous bar's close, this week market has responded positively to that and pushed higher and moved fractionally above the 2700 level. I expect this momentum may even continue a little bit longer here before there is some consolidation then in response. Silver price futures challenged the breakout line this week and did indeed push above it again. When the market moved above this level previously, it did draw out some supply. The market then pulled back to consolidate, threaten any sellers, absorb any supply, and now there's been a secondary attempt to push higher. Price did close a little off the week's high here, but not as substantially as it had done previously. So I expect this market may push a little higher here and then come back and consolidate. And importantly, I expect it will consolidate above this breakout line, above the 32 level, which would be significant if successful. Light crude price futures. Light crude price futures have been a difficult chart to understand more recently. There was support found down here. The market pushed higher in response. There was some attempt to challenge this level here, but supply has been drawn out and price has been forced lower again. It's not a very consistent chart. Price isn't moving as expected, or not all the time anyway. It's been inconsistent, and that makes it difficult to be confident in the price movements. Euro US dollar currency futures. This week spread increased but did close back in the middle. You can see here there was a real sideways congestion for an extended period of time. There was an attempt to break out here, which was completed. Price pushed up but could not push above this level. The market broke down here, continued lower, and I would have expected the market to make a more serious attempt to consolidate at the 109 or even above it. It's trying to. Here's the lows of the range here, so I guess it is within that range still. It's not particularly strong market. The spread increased this week, volatility increased. The market did close back in the middle, but that was on low volume, so there wasn't any serious attempt to stabilise the market. I expect the market actually stabilised because selling pressure eased when the US dollar just came off its highs. So this market is weaker than some of the other associated markets, which you'll see shortly. British pound currency futures. Here was the old highs of the range, a little bit of absorption that took place through here. The initial attempt to break out, test the breakout for strength. Here was the push higher and breakout. The market then moved higher a second time. Price pulled back to a fairly logical level and within this bar's range, which is important. Spread did increase, but only slightly this week, and volume did increase. The close off the week's low on an increase in volume was a little stronger than the euro, but it was still below average, so there wasn't a great deal of buying support emerge in this market. Perhaps a little more than the euro, but there still wasn't a great deal of buying support for this market. I would expect both those markets to trade the inverse of the US dollar. It does look like this market would like to move higher, but it will depend to a fairly large degree on any weakness continuing to emerge in the US dollar. Japanese yen currency futures. Volume was very low in this market. The activity was low. The market's attempting to consolidate right at these lows. These are the last gasp lows. The real lows are in here. That's the stronger level, which was broken on this down bar. The market's attempting to consolidate in here. It's not particularly convincing, but the market did trade within the previous bar's range all week on relatively low volume. So selling pressure was certainly low, and that's allowed the market just to trade sideways. Aussie dollar currency futures. Here were the lows of the range. The market just came back down to it before a little bit of buying support emerged. Once again, it was below average volume this week, so buying support wasn't particularly strong. Spread did narrow slightly, and the close was in the middle, similar to the other currency markets, which is more reflecting the weakness in the US dollar later in the week than it was really reflecting any great strength in these markets. This market also looks like it would like to move higher, but it will, to a large extent, reflect movement in the US dollar. Bitcoin futures. Bitcoin futures did move above the important intermediate level here this week in response to the 2 weeks of consolidation and absorption that we saw and mentioned last week. Here was the highs of the original range. The market did break down to some extent through here. There's been an attempt to gather up and consolidate through here, and you've seen the response to that this week. Now, there's no reason why this market cannot go a little bit higher. There will need to be a challenge to this level if we drag it across, which will be important. You may find the market move up and then come back and then have to consolidate right at this level, which is the 70,000 level, before there is any attempt to move higher and establish new all-time highs. If any weakness emerges, I expect the market will come back and trade in this level here. In that level there, that'll be a good place to consolidate at this point in time. Price will trade either side of this bar here in this sort of range and consolidate. Just back to the US dollar currency futures quickly. This market plays a large part in the trading of many of these associated markets. We saw some bottoming down here, mainly on a lack of supply, a push higher. Here was the breakout. The next level above came through here like this. There's a zone above that with obvious resistance up here. And the market just floated into this level this week on reduced volume and below average volume. There is a little bit of a supply vacuum in here. It's going to be more supply above, and the market has actually recovered below, so there's no great selling pressure below at this point in time. That's allowed the market to trade in here, which it may do for most of this week. Just trade in like this, because that's a comfortable area. We'll only move lower on weakness, and it will need some quite strong demand to push above this level. To push above 104 will take some effort for sure. It could probably move up to 104 relatively comfortably. It'll take a bit of effort. It'll take an increased effort to push above 104. Okay, thanks for your time. See you again next week. See ya.